they were chopping the tips off of the beaks of chickens, okay, young chickens. And I remember asking, why are they chopping the beaks off? Do they sell the beaks? They chop the beaks off because if they don't chop the beaks off, they will hurt each other. That, to me, blew my world wide open as a kid. And I just understood right away that that's what they're about. It's not about feeding the world. It's not about something wonderful or something amazing with animals. No. It's all about how do we just get everything out of them, profit from them as much as possible, cut as many corners as we can, cut their beaks off. There's a theory here by Richard Dawkins that actually, because they can't predict pain or like we can and kind of analyze, it's possible that they feel pain more extreme and more intensively than we do. Now imagine what they're going through. And it's a hell that I don't think any of us would want to really imagine for ourselves.
Hello everyone and good evening or good day or wherever you clicked this video or this audio on Spotify. Today at Whereabouts Tale we have a special guest. We have David Rams. David Rams has spent years fighting for animals, challenging how we think about food, ethics and activism. From uncovering the truth inside farms to sparking debates in the vegan world, his journey has taken him across countries and into tough conversations. Today on the Whereabouts Tales podcast, we explore his story, his missions, and the moments that shape him. David, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you inviting me on. Yeah, you contacted me through Reddit, right? I think it was.
Yes, exactly. It was Reddit.
No, thank you. Really happy to be here.
The topic is exciting. Because I would start by saying I think we are all a bit brainwashed when it comes to the topic because this is the world that we live in and we take everything as normal. I have to say before we start, David, would I show you what I told you as well before when we had our pre-talk before the podcast, that I went through your social media. By the way, I link your social media in the show notes captions, but I went to your Instagram account and I thought I can handle stuff. And whenever I got this message, be aware this is a sensitive content, I thought it cannot be. But I was not prepared for what I've seen there. That's why I think the topic is extremely interesting.
Yeah, I mean, me neither. I mean, when you're watching the things that I filmed and you look at some of the things some of my videos that I've posted, I was there and I filmed them myself. And yeah, I mean, I don't expect to see that either. I guess part of me, when I first started this journey and learning about all these things, part of me still doubted, right? It's not as bad as it seems. Surely it's not as bad as it seems. Surely I'm going to go to all these places and I'm going to go to farms. I'm going to go to slaughterhouses. I'm going to go and see myself and I'm going to film these things. And I mean, it's going to be bad, but it can't be. Nothing can shock me at this point. Surely I feel like I've seen everything. And lo and behold, I tell you, man, every time I go in a farm, every time I go in a slaughterhouse, almost every time something new shocks me. And the levels of depravity and violence in these places is truly bottomless. It really just continues to surprise you every time, and obviously not a good way. They're not good surprises, just the small little details you learn about. And I've been doing this for some years now, since 2017, really full-time, working in this field of investigating and exposing and trying to get the word out to people about the things that are happening in our food system mostly.
David, I will start. I always start by doing a small search before the podcast, and I ask ChatGPT what does it knows about you.
Oh, right, okay.
And I will just read the text that I got from ChatGPT. Maybe sounds a bit boring, but not a bit boring. The fact that I'm reading, I'm not that good at that. But I think it's interesting how deep is the knowledge about you. Of course, through your social media channels and so on, but still.
Sure.
David Rams is an animal rights advocate renowned for his work as a videographer, photographer, content creator, and public speaker. Since 2017.
Got it.
Exactly.
Impressed.
He has been actively involved in investigated factory farms, small-scale farms, and slaughterhouses worldwide, providing first-hand insights into the conditions animals faced. Through his social media channels, including his YouTube channel with over 20 million views, David shares eye-opening content aimed at encouraging people to see animals differently and make more compassionate choices. His Instagram account further showcases his advocacy efforts and personal experiences.
Damn. Yeah, ChatGPT is impressive. It's pretty. I couldn't have said it better myself. I actually really appreciate that summary. That was good.
I know it will be a small rant, but it kind of scares me, man.
Mm.
It kind of scares me how accurate is sometimes the information.
Yeah.
I had this until now the experience with one guest when he just made up stuff.
Right.
But but besides that, I'm kind of scared about how accurate is ChatGPT.
Yeah. Yeah.
David,
That's the whole podcast itself, there, isn't there?
no,
It's
no,
a whole
no.
other topic.
No, no, no. I think it's a serious, to be honest, because
Yeah.
the depth of the topic it's crazy.
Mhm.
David, to start, I would like to know where you originally come from when you were born. Where is the area in which you got to from a child to an adult?
Yeah, sure. I was born in the UK, and I was from a small town. I am from a small town called Chorley, which is the northwest of England, close to Preston, Manchester, Liverpool. There, yeah, born and raised there. Lived there most of my life, and then got a bit older, went to Manchester for university, and worked there for a little while. Then lived in Barcelona for some time, and since then I've been a little bit nomadic because the work has required it. Currently, I'm based in Croatia, so this is supposed to be a more permanent stop.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Because of the weather, right?
Weather's pretty good here. Yeah, yeah. There's a lot going for it.
Yeah.
We like Croatia. It's a nice country, very safe, which is difficult to find in Europe at this point. I think.
I think
This-
the I think that's the Croatia is the best combination between safe and between beauty.
yeah, I agree. Definitely. Yeah, there's a lot going for it here. Nice culture, nice people, lots of beauty, good weather, not too expensive, even though everywhere's expensive right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, good combination.
David, you've mentioned in some of the interviews, some of your videos, I've did watched a lot of your content lately. So, and you mentioned your unique upbringing in a vegetarian family.
Yeah, yeah.
In fact, you are saying I was born vegetarian and have now been vegan for 15 years.
Mhm,
You said in one of the videos.
mhm.
Did growing up vegetarian somehow automatically made you conscious of animal rights?
It's more the other way around. It's that my mum raised me with like being conscious of animals and their experiences and their lives, and she instilled in me from my earliest memories that you have to be kind to animals. And if you ask why do I have to be kind to animals? Well, because they are also individuals. They have personalities. They feel, you know, when you hurt yourself, you feel pain. They feel pain too. She explained all these things to me from being a little child. So I never wanted to eat animals for those reasons. But when I was very young, and I did push back, you know, once or twice, said, "Oh, why can't I eat?" It wasn't necessarily that I wanted to eat a steak. It was that I wanted to eat the McDonald's Happy Meal like all my friends or something like that. When that age did come, that little rebellious age around, I think I was 10 maybe, started to rebel a bit and push back. She just said, "Okay, well, you know, I've explained everything to you. Now we're going to watch some of the reality." And she showed me a video from a behind the scenes kind of investigation into farming and slaughter when I was about 10 years old. And I was mature enough to understand what was going on. And that was all I needed. I just saw that and okay, well, I don't want to I don't want to be any part of that. And she said, well, that is the McDonald's Happy Meal. This is the connection that a lot of people never get, right? I had it at 10 years old. So, you know, they kind of fed into each other. That I was vegetarian because of animal rights, but it was never we're vegetarian because it was always we're vegetarian because of we care about animals. That's why we do it, you know. So a good basis, a good foundation. I think I wish more kids had the foundation of that, you know, being raised with these lessons and this knowledge, because actually I mean, you probably know from your experience, it's hidden. And it's not like they don't do it on purpose. Your parents don't know either. And their parents don't really know because it's been hidden for generations and generations. It's kind of that elephant in the room that nobody wants to address, right? So, yeah, but I think it's important to address it.
Take us a bit back to that moment, because
Yeah.
I pictured myself being 10 years, and of course the maturity level is different, but I think the level of or the easiness in which you are impressed by those images,
Mm.
it's kind of impressive. How do you, how do you remember that day?
It was, I mean, that it stays with me. I still remember how I felt watching it. I remember actually very vividly, I remember one of the scenes. Interestingly, the slaughter footage and the farms, that those bits I don't really remember. One scene I remember being confused. They were chopping the tips off of the beaks of chickens, okay, young chickens. And I remember asking, why are they chopping their beaks off? Do they sell the beaks? I don't understand. And my mum told me, no, they chop the beaks off because if they don't chop the beaks off, they will hurt each other. I said, why would they hurt each other? I don't understand. Why would chickens attack each other? Because there are so many of them in a small space. If they leave the beaks on, they will end up killing each other because the beaks are sharp and because they lose their minds like we would. Put 1,000 humans in a room and turn off all the lights and control everything and make them live in close proximity. We're going to end up hurting each other. Well, they do the same thing. They lose their minds. That was probably the most powerful thing for the rest of my life, because that was the moment where I realized not only are they breeding them and keeping them in captivity and then killing them eventually, in the meantime, the psychological issues that they're causing in them, instead of looking to make that better, oh, how do we make them happier? How do we make them not attack each other? No, let's not do that. Let's cut their beaks off so they can't attack each. That to me blew my world wide open as a kid, and I just understood right away that okay, that's what they're about. It's not about feeding the world. It's not about, something wonderful or something amazing with animals. No. It's all about how do we just get everything out of them, profit from them as much as possible, cut as many corners as we can, cut their beaks off. Then with pigs, they cut their tails off, they pull their teeth out, right? That's what they do to pigs, because for the same reason, because they'll attack each other. And they do that with all of this is no anesthetic, by the way, because they're not going to anesthetize these, thousands and thousands of animals. So they're cutting off beaks, cutting off tails, pulling teeth out. It's just, yeah, that's what sticks with me still to this day. That stuck with me from the age of 10 years old. So it wasn't traumatizing. It was sober. It was a very sober understanding. Okay, that's how that system works. All right, good. Now I know.
I have to put I have to add somehow my private experience. Being born and raised, I'm born and raised in Romania.
Yeah.
David, as for a bit of a background, and I had grandparents who were living on the countryside. And of course, what do you have on the countryside? You have some kind of animals, right?
Right.
All kind of animals, and we had chicken. And I have a I have a two things which kind of stuck with me, like in the same way
Yeah.
that yours did. My grandma taking the taking their life. I don't know how to say it in a nicer way,
Sure.
but I
Yeah.
always see it as an unbelievable cruel act. And of course, my small brain didn't really make the connection between that chicken who was dead there on the table and the food that I got the next day, because
Yeah.
that was the normal life. Sorry. And the second thing, but there is a second thing which I have to say, it's something which shocked me as well.
Mm.
I do remember in the chicken were always they didn't had a coop or something. They had a place where they were sleeping in the night, but then they were usually out in the garden and
Sure.
doing their stuff. And I do remember one image. I was in the summer, like outside between them, and I saw two of them killing and eating a mouse. And
Right.
that was one moment where I realized, oh my god, that's something which I never thought it's happening.
Mm.
But he never had the chance. It never had the chance, the mouse. So
Mm-hmm.
I have it in my brain somehow, like you said, that picture that you've seen, that one I have it in my brain, because he tried to run away, but they were like around him somehow, and he didn't
Yeah.
manage to run. So, and I realized how powerful they are, how strong they are, and I
Hmm.
think this what you are saying with the bigs with them attacking each other, it's
Yeah.
absolutely correct because they have power, and like you said, of course, that are survival what I've seen, and also strange because they had enough food, but I think that's human nature, right?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, they can do things like that. It could be territorial. It could be some kind of defense mechanism. At the end of the day, I mean, they operate on instinct, right? We don't,
Correct.
obviously we don't, but they operate on instinct. It's so sometimes a dog will just go and attack a small dog and rip them to pieces, and they'll never ever even think of growling at a person or another bigger dog. But some of them instinctively want to kill small dogs. Animals are weird and wonderful, and also sometimes pretty terrible. you know, I'm not. I'm a vegan, and I care about them. I care about their rights, and I care about we shouldn't be doing all these horrible things to them, but they that doesn't mean that they can't also be pretty nasty, but they don't know better, right?
I have this topic covered a bit later in our
Sure.
discussion, because I think it's really a good point that we have to cover for sure.
Yeah.
You've said I have seen non-human animals enslaved, tortured, and killed with my own two eyes
Yeah.
during your investigations around the world.
Mhm.
Was there one particular incident or encounter during those early investigations that was a turning point for you personally?
There's been many. Um, I mean, we've got good stories and bad stories. I mean, I can tell you one bad one. We found in an industrial pig farm. I mean, they're all industrial. I mean, okay, 99% of them are like very industrial, and not that it makes a huge difference, to be totally honest with you. But anyway, we were in one of the bigger ones, and they tend to have runts in these farms, like so piglets that are not growing as fast as the other piglets, and maybe there's something wrong with them. And what they'll do is eventually, if they when they find these runts and they realize they're not growing fast enough, the way to kill them in most countries, Europe, America, Australia, Canada too, I think, they simply just get the piglet and they'll just smash their head into concrete or into something hard. And that's how they kill any sick or piglets that aren't growing fast enough. And we found one of these little baby piglets, and we saw that this one was a runt and was not going to make it. That they were going to kill this runt. There's no doubt. We got him out of there, but we got actually two of them out of there. Two of the runts. One of them had a disability, so his back leg was completely screwed up, and the other one was just not doing well. And so we tried to save them both. The farm would have killed them, by the way. So this, as babies. So a lot of people would say, "Oh, that's theft. That's this. That's that." We don't consider it theft when these animals are sick and die and will be killed probably tomorrow by the farmer. That they're waste products to them, right? And so we got them out. Unfortunately, one of them died, which was very painful because we really tried. We really tried to save them. But the other one was able to recover from the disability, which was amazing with surgery and help and recovery exercises and things like that. And yeah, went on to live and still is living a fulfilling life at an animal sanctuary. So that's a really nice story. That with some very obviously very dark and sad moments because obviously his brother didn't make it. And another story that's really nice. We were able to rescue, and this was actually the first story was under the cover of night, under the cover of darkness. Let's just put it that way. But this one actually was completely in the daylight and was negotiated. A farmer gave us an egg laying hen out of just wanted to do something nice, handed her over to us, and again we were able to get her rescued and out of there. This was a massive factory farm. Like it had, I think he told us 20,000 chickens inside. So we got her out from 20,000 chickens, and now she lives in a sanctuary with, I don't know, 50 chickens. So what a difference that made. Can you imagine how stressful it would be to be stuck inside with 20,000 people your entire life? So yeah, just incredible that we were able to get her out of there, and she's yeah, living a very happy chicken life. I mean, they can't live much of a chicken life in those places, but the second they get out of these places, they revert to full on chicken life. They do all the things that they instincts tell them to do, and but when they in these places they do none of it because they're completely depressed and psychotic, actually, in a lot of cases they're completely lost. Yeah.
You film a lot of farms inside. How do you get inside them, David? If you are able to share.
It depends on, I mean, the vast majority of the farms that I've been in has been with permission. And it's been just by simply right place, right time kind of situation.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of some people will, like I mentioned earlier, go under the cover of darkness, but they don't break in. It's not, nothing's broken, nothing's smashed or anything like that. What tends to happen is in countryside areas, farms tend to be just left open in a lot of countries.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of that open door policy a lot of them have, which is kind of odd because these places are some of the most horrific places on earth, but a lot of them do actually just leave the doors open. So yeah, for investigations, it's investigative journalism, and so I think most of your viewers would agree that we need investigative journalists to, push the boundaries of the law sometimes to get the truth out, right? And so that's how a lot of people do it. They simply just go along and get in, film, and leave. And yeah.
Investigative journalism is one of the cornerstone of our society, and I think that's something that we have to have, and we are not allowed to have cults, because cults is what brought us here to this anger that we are sharing with each other on different reasons. It doesn't matter if it's politics, if it's whatever it is. It's always either black or white, either red or blue, if we talk about US and so on. And I think that journalism, it's objective journalism, it's important. Investigative is even more important. So that's why.
Yeah, I know some people. I do. I don't know who your listeners are, but I know for some people, kind of outside of these circles, might be shocked at the idea that somebody would, enter somebody else's property and. But the thing is, if you knew or suspected that, for example, a dog breeding facility was doing horrible things to the dogs, and the dogs had diseases and injuries and sickness, if you even suspected that, 99% of people would be cheering you on to get into that place and find out, even if it meant, trespassing, right? Because trespassing is not a big deal in that case, is it? But then, switch the dog for a pig, a chicken, or a cow. A lot of people now seem to have more of an issue with it. But, to me, if I find out that there's a building down the road full of dogs, then that baby being abused, I'm trying to get inside to see what's going on and expose it. I feel the same about cows, pigs, chickens, any animal. If I find out there's a big building full of animals and people telling me that I think there's something going on in there, I mean, I want someone to go in, if not myself, right? And you do what you need to do, get inside and find out. We need to know.
If you go in a parking place of a mall and you see a dog inside of a car, you feel it's justified to break the window, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I would hope people would do the same thing if they saw a chicken, a cow, or a pig in a hot car and, dying of heat exhaustion. I would hope that they would also want to break the window. Absolutely.
Talking about the farms being open, David, I'm living in Germany at the moment, and there is I would say an interesting policy as well here. It's still for me hard to understand it, because I'm coming from Eastern Europe, where you don't leave things unattended because they usually get stolen.
Right.
But jokes on the side, all the farms are open, and besides that, like, there's a farm not so far away from me. They have a milk machine where I get the milk for my kid. I got a lot, and you are allowed to enter there, but like you said, I never had the feeling that those, and I'm absolutely honest now, I never thought about this like this now, but you never have the feeling that those cows are happy. They all have their place
Right.
where they get the food from, like,
Yeah.
it's a V where they stick their head in and it's opening,
Yep.
but they don't have the place to move. They don't have yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, you're talking about a dairy farm there, and I said earlier on that a lot of farms leave the doors open. Dairy farms tend to have an actual open door policy. They do tend to let people just kind of roam. None of the other farms do, by the way. They'll leave doors open, but it's there's a fence. There is actually protection, but they tend to leave doors to the barns open, whereas they lock the gate around it. You know what I mean? It's not open door. It's just a little. It's not difficult to get inside. That's what I was trying to say. But with the dairy farms, yeah, you go there in the day. They're usually happy to let you in and walk around. And it's interesting you mentioned that the cows don't look too happy, and that it tends to be the case, especially because they're usually on concrete as well, and it's not too pleasant. But there's a lot of things that are happening in these places that you will never see on an open day at a dairy farm. They will never allow you to see the dark side of the dairy industry or a dairy farm. And I don't know how far you've looked into this, but I can just give you a quick kind of insight as to the things you'll never be shown. So the process. So for basically, cows are mammals like we are, right? And just like we are, if a woman wants to produce milk, she has to be pregnant and or have had the baby. So sometimes women start producing milk while they still have the baby. Usually they give birth and then the milk production starts. Cows are no different. They don't just produce milk from nothing. They've got to be pregnant or have recently had a baby. And so farmers need to make that happen. And they don't just hope that nature's going to take course, because that's not profitable. And they're usually operating within some sort of profit margin, right? They've got to make money. So they want to make it happen. So what do? Well, they'll put her in one of these contraptions you were talking about, kind of V around the neck, but they'll put her in one that actually holds her into place. And then they will take this bull semen. They'll have in a needle, like a long needle, but they're going to inject her with it, right? But part of the process of injecting her with it is they need to kind of simulate what a bull's penis would do, which would go in and it would lift her cervix and go all the way in. So they need to imitate that. So what they do is they'll put the hand inside her arse, down her anus, and then they'll go inside and lift from the anus while injecting her in her vagina with the semen. And they'll do that to every cow at least once a year. Obviously, if it doesn't work, they'll do it again if she doesn't get pregnant. So they're not going to show you that. You go to a dairy farm, they're not going to show you that part of the process. They're not going to show you the part of the process where, when they've had the calf, within a couple of hours of being born, they will separate them. So they're not going to show you that. They'll take the calf away, put the calf in a single hut, and they'll pretty much live alone or with other calves. They'll never see their mother again in most cases, in most farms, because there's no reason to. They want to control everything that calf eats, and they want to control all the milk coming out of the mother. So can't do that if the calf stay with the mother, right? They're going to keep on drinking the milk. So they make sure that's done. So the mother, usually these mother cows, are moaning and whining and crying. I've seen that actually myself. And the babies, they have no idea what's going on. They've just been born. They don't have a mother. They're alone. There's other calves that are also kind of nearby in their little huts. Everyone's just kind of, out there, and you need a mother. They need to be shown what to do. And they can't even stand up when they've been separated. Imagine that, taking your first steps alone with no one to support you and no mother to guide you and nothing. They just taking their first steps in a hut alone. So that's their life. And if they have the unfortunate bad luck of being born as a male, then that's the veal industry. The dairy industry and the meat industry are connected. Pretty much all of the baby boy cows, so they will go and be killed as babies for veal. So that's, the dairy industry. Like I said, they'll walk you in there. They'll show you a dairy farm. Hey, look how nice it is. Look at all this. We don't hurt animals. Well, they do a lot, and they do send those cows for slaughter, those baby cows. And then when the mother is not producing as much milk, obviously she'll follow her babies to the slaughterhouse. There's all the things they won't show you.
I have a friend who's um is the word animal doctor? Is it
Veterinarian? Yeah.
Veterinarian, exactly. And he told me while he was in school, this is an awful story, and I forgot I know it. They told me while he was in school that all the students from 1 year had to simulate this process that you just explained on
Artificial
the same
insemination,
cow.
yeah. On the same cow. Right.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I forgot I knew this story, and this is sad. Okay.
Yeah. No, veterinary professionals, I feel for the ones that get into it because they love animals. I feel for them because what a shock they must get when they go in there and actually a good chunk of their course is about farmed animals and the kinds of things they have to do to farmed animals, unspeakable things. I imagine there's quite a high dropout rate for vets. I've not looked into that, but I imagine it's pretty high because, yeah, it's the things that they have to learn to do. And I think they become cold and hardened to it. I've seen vets on farms doing horrible things to animals, and I've seen vets. I saw this on a big farm, a big dairy farm actually. They were moving the calves because once they get big enough, they move them to a holding pen where they can all be together for a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just until they get big enough to start impregnating and then
Mm-hmm.
milking them, right? So they were moving them, but they're scared. Their entire life has been spent in this tiny little hut, and now all of a sudden they're being dragged out of it. So they're all frightened and they're trying to move away, and they don't want to go in the truck. And the workers are grabbing them, one hand on the tail, gripping the tail, and one hand on either the ear or in the nostrils, and they're dragging them, right? And I swear to you, there was a vet who's supposed to oversee this whole process. I swear to you, she was laughing. She thought it was hilarious. I think, and this is not me being horrible about all vets. I'm just saying, I think they harden up to it. I think they lose the reason they got into this field,
I,
along the
I,
way.
my problem in all of these cases is that this terror that you apply on the animal it doesn't need to be there. It doesn't need you don't need to do that process like
Of
that. But
course.
somebody who felt the need of showing their power over an animal said, okay, let's pull his nostrils out because he's not able to move anymore.
It's time. It's time.
Unbelievable.
These workers, the welfare of the animal in all of these industries, meat, eggs, dairy, the welfare of the animal is only important so long as the animal is productive and profitable. You
Sure.
dragging an animal out of the hut onto a truck, a baby, by the way, they're still very young, by the tail and nostrils or tail and ear, is that going to impact the productivity of the animal or the profitability? No. So why care? This is how these systems operate. If you've got a big heart, you are not going to survive working in any kind of farming or any kind of slaughterhouse. Not going to happen. You'll learn to harden up and become cold and heartless, or you'll get fired because you're too slow and you're making everything slow and you're making people feel bad. That's how it'll be.
I'm making a parallel. Um, I don't know if you are familiar with the story of the orphanage that they have found in Romania after the communism has fallen.
I think so. Yeah, I think I heard about this.
There was a German TV who discovered them somewhere near Arad, so at the border of Romania and Hungary and Serbia. So that small corner below, I think it was Chigid, if I remember it correctly. And what what is the most shocking, and it's somehow the same thing. What's the most shocking is not the conditions that they were into, is not, it's the way in which those caregivers were behaving with them,
Right.
because nobody told them you have to be an asshole with them. Nobody
Yep.
told them you have to maltreat them. Nobody told them you have not to change their clothes and leave them in their own feces there to say. But it's the same in this case. Like, you are getting dehumanized, and I think that's, of course, the parallel. We talk about souls in both cases, right?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I would say it's fair enough.
I don't think like I don't see any problem at all with making comparisons. Some people get upset when you compare animals to humans. I understand why, because they think that in their eyes that's an insult, and they think you're equating them. But that's not. If I ever talk about, like, for example, you just compared this situation with these orphans that are being left in their own feces and dirt and not being neglected, and that is absolutely what happens to 99% of animals in our food systems, right? Now that's a comparison. You're drawing a similarity, but what you're not doing is saying that those children are exactly the same as pigs, because that's not true. It's just not true. They're not the same. They're very different situations, different laws surrounding it, different norms and societal, opinions. But what we are saying is that the situations they were put in are very similar. And what I would go as far as saying is, in the ways that matter, the ways that really matter, they are the same. In
Mm-hmm.
that a child avoids pain, doesn't want violence on them, feels suffering, both psychological and physical. Children have all of that. They also don't really understand the world around them, children. Well, guess what? Neither does a pig, a chicken, or a cow. They have no idea what's going on half the time, probably less than a child, actually. And actually, there is argument to say we don't know. We know they feel pain, obviously. That's completely settled, right? Science is settled there. We don't know to what extent. And it's been theorized, actually. Richard Dawkins theorized this, that because we have consciousness that is quite advanced. So if you put your hand on something and you can feel that it's going to be hot, you will already know because of your heightened awareness and consciousness, like, oh no, that's going to be hot. You can predict the future. You can say, I'm not going to touch that because it'll hurt me. Animals don't have that, right? A pig, even pigs are incredibly intelligent, same intelligence as a 4-year-old child. They can't do that, right? As far as I know. So there's a theory here by Richard Dawkins that actually, because they can't predict pain or like we can and kind of analyze, it's possible that they feel pain more extreme and more intensively than we do
Because it's
because
always a surprise.
absolutely, because the signal will also surprise, but then also because the signal needs to be stronger to make sure they never do that thing again. Whereas with us, it doesn't need to be strong because, like I say, you literally touch one little finger on something hot. Oh, okay, that's enough for me because I can process that I can understand what heat is. A pig doesn't really get that. And so the pain has to be a lot more for them to understand that same lesson we get. That's a theory. So in the ways that matter, the point is we share similarities that are incredibly important. And if anything, they might feel more pain than we do. And if that's the case, if that's true, my God, when you consider what we do to them and how bad it is, even if we imagine it at the same level of pain as we feel, and then all these horrors we do and the big factory farms and all the disease and the injuries and dying of starvation and thirst, and then even if they make it out of the going to a slaughterhouse with all that fear, and then what we do to them there, imagine if it was the levels of pain that we feel multiplied maybe by 1,000. Now imagine what they're going through, and it's a hell that I don't think any of us would want to really imagine for ourselves.
David, this topic with the science is settled. It's for now, and I have to say it's for now because we have seen the science changing in the last century a lot. Because the science is advancing, the science is never settled, and I have to say that was one of the wrong statements that we got through COVID. No, the science is settled. No,
Sure.
the science is never settled. The
Sure.
science is always progressing, and also in this case, when we talk about conscience and we talk about the spiritual things, which if we talk about the scientists for 20 years ago, he would say no, that has nothing to do with science. There are more and more people coming into the spiritual part of the body, and it's not only our body; it's also the animal body. Where it's okay, there is something there. There is something which is creating this personality, and again, it's becoming to be science. If you are talking about meditation with a scientist 20 years ago, he would just say, "Come on, that's just voodoo."
Yeah, true. Yeah, true.
And now it's different.
I guess I meant the science settled on that. The science is settled on the fact that they feel pain, like that. That's
true.
not going to become undone.
Correct.
But
correct.
I 100% agree with you that as we advance and our understandings get better and better with AI coming in as well, which is going to make it easier for us to understand an animal and what they might be trying to communicate to us. I think what we're going to learn about them is that they don't only feel pain and suffer in a similar way to us. It's going to be different to us and arguably much more intense and worse than we feel. And when we learn this, you'd hope that this would be the wake up call that everybody needs to say, hey, look, maybe, I mean, we all know for sure deep down that we don't need to eat them or the things that come from them. I think it's established at this point, apart from like silly misinformation out there that people get confused about. But I think most people get it that, yeah, we don't need to. You'd hope that that would be some kind of wake up call for people to say, hey, do you know what? Like, that's it for me. I'm gonna just eat animal free food instead because I don't want to be a part of that. I mean, I every day I hope people have that wake up call just by what's already happening, but hopefully science is going to help progress that a little faster. I really hope so. More revelations about animals and consciousness.
David, I think you mentioned something really important for next discussion point that I have on in my head and on my list. Let's say it like this: you often emphasize the individual action, saying a better world for animals is possible, and it starts with you and me and everyone that is taking the decision and the choices of eating or not eating the meat. Yet there is some critics and critic points.
Yeah.
Which I heard as well in some science podcasts that I'm listening. Feel Better, Live More. I can give you a lot of names and
Sure.
like really respectful scientists, which are saying following a vegan diet might not make it so easy for you to get the right amount of protein that you need.
Mhm.
That's the first thing, and you might result in some deficiencies of micronutrients. I would say with the
Okay.
micronutrients, for me, it's not so clear because it's some deficiency in some micronutrients means at least at the moment nothing for me. But the protein discussion is there and it's open since a lot of times. It's not
Sure.
about that you are not able to take the same amount. No, you need more quantity to be able to get the same amount of protein that you get from meat, from vegetables. How do you reconcile these concerns with your message, or how do you think they fit together?
Of course, yeah. I mean, first off the bat, you can't really tell, obviously, because I'm stood up, but you can't tell. But I'm 6'2", about 185 centimeters. I'm 90 kilos. If I was protein deficient, well, I wouldn't be standing, first of all. I'd be in a hospital bed. And if you want to take yourself to the hospital and ask every single patient why they're in there, you are not going to find a vegan who's protein deficient. It's not going to happen. And so this idea of us becoming protein deficient through eating a plant-based or animal-free diet, whatever you want to call it, it's a little bit silly, a little bit scaremongering. And I know you talked about these respectful scientists, and I'm sure they're well-respected scientists, but a good majority of very smart people have very silly opinions when it comes to the plant-based diet, and I some of them genuine that just haven't looked into it properly. Some of them it's more of a sinister motivation that it's a signal to their fans that they're one of the good ones. Like, oh, I'm going to tell you, you can, you know, eat whatever you want and feel okay about it. And there's a lot of that out there, unfortunately. Because nobody likes to be told what they're eating is bad, and so a lot of influencers will avoid doing it for that reason. But so let's crunch down into it, though, because it is important. So the protein deficiency thing, the vast majority of people who are eating, not starving, right? So like, wealthy people, they're eating too much protein. We know that. That's established. Like, most of us are over consuming protein. So that's already a pretty good place to start. I mean, if you're going to eat less protein, it's probably going to be a good thing. But anyway, if you don't want to eat less protein, if you want to eat more protein because you're bodybuilding or something like that, there are vegan bodybuilders. There are vegan bodybuilders competing at really high levels. There are vegan athletes competing at really high levels, from sprinters to marathon runners to ultra runners to, strength. What's the guy's name from Anyway, the USA's powerlifting team, one of the guys who made that is a vegan. So there are people out there. Now, a common response to this would be, well, but there's such a tiny minority, though. And it's like, yes, because we are a tiny minority of the world. Out of the less than 1% of the world population, elite athletes are a tiny fraction of the world population too. To have a tiny percentage of a tiny percentage, you take it elite athletes and vegans and expecting more of them to be in the competitions. It's a miracle that there is even one or two of them, considering the statistics on that, right? But anyway, so the animal-free diet, it can support whatever you want it to do. In terms of absorbability, you were talking about, I think, protein quality. There's also similar arguments for iron as well. That people say that iron's not as absorbable from plant sources. They say the same thing with calcium. All of these things may be true, that they're on paper or in a cell, or however they've studied this, these things seem to be true. But in terms of practically, when you actually look at plant-based populations or plant-based groups in studies, they are in many cases outperforming the omnivorous dieters on protein intake, on iron levels, calcium levels. So it's not that you can't do it, and it's not that it's really, really hard because of absorbability. It's actually not the case at all. If you're eating a proper diet, varied, you don't have to eat you don't have to eat crazily. You don't have to eat like differently to what you're eating before. You just got to make sure that you're eating healthily, and it's pretty. You'll achieve whatever you want to achieve. I mean, eat a diet that fits your lifestyle, but make it animal free, and you'll have no problem. It's more inconvenient, but it's not difficult, right?
Correct. And this is a good point. It's more inconvenient, yes, but it's not impossible.
No.
Because I think impossible is the actual statement that we have to say here. It's not impossible. It's harder, yes, and you have to do a bit more effort, but it's still possible. It's still doable.
And the effort is only, it's a couple of weeks of effort, and then it becomes like riding a bike.
We are adaptable creatures, and I think we are able to adapt to a different kind of food if we decide to go into that direction. That's why, from my point of view, I think it's a, like you said, it's a period of time where you have this adaptability phase, but then you are fine.
Yeah.
David, I have a personal thing, which is somehow I always wanted to ask this question to someone who's vegan, and
Yeah, go for it.
there is a thing which I'm not able to understand, and maybe you can explain it to me. You said you're not eating meat. Sorry.
Nope. I get all my energy from the sun. I photosynthesize.
I'm sorry. I'm a bit tired. I'm sorry for that.
It's good. That's a good one. I like that's a good one.
And you are eating a plant-based diet. Where are you with meat replacers? Because I have a problem with my head.
All right.
I want to say it until the end.
Sure,
if you don't eat meat, why would you need a meat replacer?
Yeah. It's a good question. A good way of putting it, I think, that you'll understand right away. If there is a teenager out there and he's watched a few crazy movies, Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Some gun movies, right? Get to the chopper, all this kind of thing, right? And he's thinking, hey, do you know what? I want to do a few things, right? I want to shoot a gun. I really want to shoot a gun, and I want to shoot some bad guys. I want to go out and shoot some people because I want to live that. I want to do that, right? Would you rather he went out, took his dad's gun, okay, and went out on a shooting spree, stealing cars and shooting people, or would you rather he picked up Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto on the PlayStation 5? I think we know which one we'd rather this kid do, right? We want him to do the real thing because that's going to be violent and it's going to hurt people and it's probably going to get himself killed. We want him to play the video games and just, enjoy that. Now, obviously, the kid probably never wanted to go out and shoot people. It's probably just a silly idea. And if he did, then it's a lost cause. There's no video game in the world that's going to help him, right? But we assume that, kids get an idea and like, instead of doing something silly, let's just have them sit at home and pretend to do it on a game. So when it comes to meat replacers and fake meats, most vegans, myself included, I mean, I never ate meat, by the way. I was raised vegetarian, as you know, but I loved cheese. And I didn't stop loving cheese. I still love the taste of cheese. What I don't love about cheese, and actually what I hate about cheese, is the animal cruelty and the animal abuse that is inevitable and unavoidable to produce a piece of cheese. It is, I've explained what happens in the dairy industry. Unavoidable. Is how the industry works. And by the way, the only way to avoid that, the things that I've mentioned, and to have what most people would consider to be, a lot of people who don't agree with me on animal rights, they'll say, oh, but there is a good way. There is a good way to have a cow in a farm. Those magical ways that people see on the TV and stuff like that would require you to eat significantly less animal products and to pay significantly more for them.
If we talk about industry, it's industry, and there is no way.
No, there's no way. There's no way without violating an animal. There's no way. But my point is, a lot of people might not care about that, and they say, "I just want the best conditions possible." Great. The best conditions possible would mean that you would need to eat animal products once a year, maybe, or 2-3 times a year, and you'd have to pay 10 or to 100 times more than you are now. So if you're willing to do that, then there'll be a significant improvement. But what we need to do is do away with all of it, I think.
David, it's the same discussion. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but it's the same discussion with the iPhone. Like everyone is saying, I want to have an iPhone produced in the US by a US factory. No, you don't, because you don't want to pay $10,000 on it. So shut up.
Exactly. So that's why I think, but even in that world where people, if everyone in the world came together and said, you know what, we're happy to eat less and we're happy to pay more, that would still be an incredible difference to what we have now. And so if that's, look, I would much prefer people boycott and say, I'm not going to fund this because I'm against violence to animals. But if they're not going to do that, I would at least say, well, at least do this then. At least demand conditions that make it so that it's a completely different world. And then in that world, I think it would be a lot easier to get to the point where people just say, do you know what? I'm only eating it once every 3 months, I think I'll just stop eating it. And then that way we could still get to that conclusion of, okay, let's just stop doing it. Back to my point though, I loved cheese and I never stopped loving the taste of cheese. I just stopped loving this violence to animals and all of these things. And so if somebody comes along and says, hey, here's cheese that is pretty close texture wise, pretty close taste wise, but guess what? There's no animal been involved here. I made this out of plants. I use spices and herbs and all sorts of stuff. Tastes like cheese, melts a bit like cheese. Do you want to try it? Hell yeah, I want to try it. Why not? Give it to me. And so a lot of people have that same feeling with meat. It's they don't no longer feel comfortable with the violence to animals that it takes to get a piece of chicken or beef on their plate. And then somebody else says, well, I've made chicken and beef out of plants. It's pretty close, pretty close. What do you reckon? Yeah, okay. What's in it? Okay, yeah, it's just some plant proteins and stuff like that. No cholesterol, so that's pretty good. It's got usually they have high sodium content, but I mean, swapping cholesterol for sodium, it's a pretty good swap, and you're not going to eat it every day. It shouldn't be something that you make like
You touched the
don't
point
rely on
because
it, right?
you touched the point because this is exactly my point.
Yeah.
I've read the ingredients on the list, and it I'm quoting the book which is called Ultra Processed People.
Mhm.
I don't know if you know the book is from
No.
Chris von
But I'm aware of the
Taniken.
discussion.
Exactly. And the guy is saying, is not talking about vegan or something, he's saying every product, so every ingredients list that has something on the ingredients list that you are not able to buy for yourself in your house, we can say it's ultra processed.
Sure.
So, like, if you see, I don't know, some special salt, some special things that you are not able to buy like a normal consumer, he says it's ultra processed. I think I didn't butcher his name, but it's Chris von Tuliken.
Okay.
It's a guy from Holland, and the guys they have a strange name. And every time when I look on those ingredients, I see some kind of dextrose, some kind of, I don't know, I give you the dextrose example. I don't necessarily mean dextrose,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
I see a complicated name, and that gives me somehow the feeling of ultra processed food.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, but and I'm saying I'm not vegetarian, I'm not vegan, I'm absolutely honest with you.
Yeah.
But if I would be there, and where I'm trying to replace with the meat with vegetables, to replace with the plant-based protein, like for example chickpeas. Like for example, like chickpeas is the best options that exist at the moment because they have the most amount of protein. But I'm trying to replace it with something healthy, and exactly here is somewhere where I kind of have a logic break in my head where you think, I know I'm doing something good for the animal, but I'm doing something bad for myself. This is the feeling that I have.
Well, I think there's like three things, and so the first thing would be, well, the first thing I would talk about is a kind of like from a moral position, as like a just a kind of a values based kind of point. The second thing we'll talk about is the alternatives, and the third thing we'll talk about is ultra processed foods. So we'll break it down into three. So the first thing is the morals question and the values question. It's if we found out to tomorrow that about 80% of our diet was directly funding the enslavement, abuse, and killing of children, I think without a shadow of a doubt, we would immediately adapt and we'd figure it out as we go. And even if it meant
we all use iPhones, so
yeah. I suppose, but I mean, yeah, with iPhones and things like that, it's yes, people have bad working conditions and are not paid enough.
I'm joking,
but yeah, I know. But
I know what you mean.
People genuinely say this though, so I'll cover it because people do. You're joking, they're not. But bad wages, bad working conditions. These things are important, but they're not being hung up upside down and having their throats slit. So it's definitely a problem, not quite at the level of what we're talking about here. We'd all change, right? We'd all change, and
absolutely.
And I think most people would even accept being slightly less healthy. Now, the good thing is that you don't need to accept that to be a vegan and to whatever you want to call yourself, to eat, to avoid animal products. You don't need to be less healthy. But even if it did mean you were less healthy, we would definitely do it for children. So that's just kind of a values point, first off. But the beauty is that we absolutely don't need to sacrifice health, because if you've got if anyone has a problem with processed foods, that's fine, understandable. There are many, many lesser processed or completely unprocessed options for plant-based diet. The whole food plant-based diet has been like renowned as probably the healthiest diet that you can, the one of the healthiest diets you can eat. I think the only one that beat it was the Blue Zones diet. I think was the only one that beat it. If I'm remembering correctly. But a whole food plant-based diet consists of nuts and grains and seeds and all the things. We have thousands and thousands of fruits and vegetables to eat. Protein-wise, chickpeas, lentils, various nuts and seeds, and various other grains. You get quinoa, things like that. Now, if you're a creative chef, you'll probably really enjoy that. If you're lazy like me, you're not going to enjoy it so much. I do. We do. Myself and my wife and I, we try and do a lot of whole plant-based foods, but I need some processed stuff. I don't, my health for me is, I'm kind of a little bit like life's too short. I'll be healthy, but I also want to eat stuff I really like, right? So I'm into the vegan meats and stuff. Now the cool thing is ultra processed foods, they're being demonized right now. Now we're on to the third point. If you don't want to do that, then do the thing I just said. There are ways, or just have, less of it. There are less processed foods. That's the thing I was going to say. There is something called textured soy, TVP it's called. And it's processed, but it's very, very minimal. There's only 2 ingredients in it. I think it's soy and water, and it's just processed in a way that it once you get it wet, once you make it dry to wet, it acts like mince, and you can make burgers with it, and you can put it in chilies. I think I know it. I think it's like 40% protein per gram. So it's, you put it in anything. If you're making pasta sauce, just put it in. You've just created a significantly high protein source when you put it in anything. Put it in stews, put it in soups, put it in literally everything. And it's quite affordable. So if protein's your thing, that's a really good one. Now UPFs, ultra processed foods. There's a lot of scaremongers out there that are trying to freak people out about these things, and everything is being kind of told, oh, it's ultra processed. The thing is, yes, some of them are bad, that's true, but it's not a one statement fits everything, right? It's not that all ultra processed food equals bad. For example, Huel, Huel, the drink, the meal drink. Huel is a meal drink, and there's lots of them. It has 26 essential vitamins and minerals, has high protein, low salt, good amount of fat in it, and it's a meal drink. It's a very healthy meal drink, ultra processed food. But comparing that to another ultra processed food where the only purpose of it is literally just to be like a tasty vegan burger, the big difference, right?
Exactly, absolutely with you, and here we agree. And I say I'm coming from a perspective. I have to for full transparency. I'm coming from a perspective of a fat guy, so I'm absolutely honest. And
you say fat guy, you don't look fat.
I'm not anymore.
Okay. Okay.
I used to weigh 200 kilos, which is a lot.
Oh, really? Man,
exactly.
That's well done, dude. That's a hard number to come back from, man. That's impressive.
Thank you.
Damn.
I had the surgery help. I have to also for the full transparency, because I was in a place where it's not so easy to do sports anymore. So also big stomach, a lot of changes. Doesn't matter. Different story. A whole story for itself.
How tall are you as well?
185. Not that tall.
Yeah, I mean we're about the same height.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, and coming from the fat guy perspective, that's why I'm kind of focused on this on the diet itself, because there are 2 things which kind of destroyed me, and I know it now because I kind of experience it's sugar and processed food. So sugar, I'm trying to avoid as much as possible. I have a 7-year-old son, which as your mother raised you vegan, I'm trying to raise him with fructose, not with sugar. Not without sweets, but
processed sugar. Trying to avoid processed sugar makes sense.
Exactly.
Nice.
And also ultra processed food is something which is hard. And again, coming from, I'm happy for you if you're not in the same situation like me. But trust me, it's one of the biggest problems that we have and we will have in the future in the society. I'm looking everywhere. Everybody's buying fast food because nobody has time for anything and nobody has time to focus on their food at all. US was a huge disappointment for me, and I'm absolutely honest. food-wise. I love the country because of the cliches that I've seen in movies and so on.
Of course.
But it is true. But food-wise, was a big disappointed because
Yeah.
90% of the food that you get there is fast food. There's
Yeah.
nothing else, and
Definitely. Of
that's why
course.
I'm afraid of ultra-processed food, because I think
Gotcha.
I don't want to. I don't want that we are falling from one issue into the other, and that's why I think, from my point of view, if I would eat, and I'm doing it every once in a while, I'm doing this chickpea burger, which I think it's
Nice.
amazing.
Yeah.
There are some alternatives that you can do at home, or you can just eat vegetables, because
Mhm.
vegetables, if you have the right combination of vegetable seeds, like you said, I think that's really important. You have a lot of seeds, you have chia seeds, you have a lot of things which are mimicking everything that you need.
Mhm.
Uh, but I still, now I know, I have to be honest, I liked your explanation. Um, and I think the argument is really fair to say, okay, man, I like the taste of meat, but I don't want to have the the pain on my back of those animals that were treated bad. That's why I like to eat that every once in a while. I mean, that makes absolutely sense. Nobody explained it to me like this until now, so
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's it. It's the look. We want pleasure. We all want to live, and I mean, we've got different priorities for you. Your priorities now
absolutely.
is your kid mostly, right? And your
Yeah.
kid will bring you pleasure, of course. And we all have our things that we like, and there's no reason, if you can, if you want to keep doing something that you love, that you really really enjoy, and there's no reason for yourself. It's not bad for you. It's not bad for your kid. You really want to keep doing it, but it is bad for animals. Then, and you find out you can do the exact same thing almost without the animals involved, then keep doing it, like for example with you now, you don't eat processed foods. You're saying like you don't do McDonald's, you don't do all these things. So for you in your specific case, you might not really do the mock meats and the vegan meats because you're not doing processed meats as it is, so you're probably not going to switch to processed vegan meat either. Fair enough. Some people don't have the same priorities as you, as we've established, and
Absolutely.
they eat burgers all the time, they love steaks, and they love all these different types of processed things, and things that are generally not very good for you, and they just want to keep eating those things. But okay, that's absolutely fine. I'm trying to get people to connect with the value they already have, which is that everybody in the world almost will say, I'm against animal cruelty, I'm against animal abuse. But then when you say, what about the stuff that happens in the farms and slaughterhouses? People tend to get very uncomfortable. I'm trying to get past that discomfort and say, look, you don't have to feel uncomfortable. Don't hate me. Don't hate vegans. We're not opposed. We agree. I'm just trying to get you to please help us help animals here, because I feel like we agree on 99% of things. How do I get you to make that choice, and especially today when it's so much easier than 20 years ago,
I loved your statement in one of the previous podcasts that you've
Hmm.
been in. I'm sorry I don't remember exactly which one, because I listened to them one after the other, and they kind of mixed up in my head
That's
from
good.
the.
Don't worry.
But you said, the moment when I stopped getting angry when someone was screaming at me was the moment in which I realized they have nothing with me. It's nothing that is personal against me.
Right.
And
Definitely.
this
Yeah.
And this is exactly I think the point is, Ruiz, that you should not be angry on me. I'm just bringing a message. I mean,
Yeah.
of course you don't like yourself. You have a problem with yourself, maybe, that you are putting it on me now. But I think that's an important topic to say.
No, for sure, for sure. I try not to take things personally because, yeah, people like to shoot the messenger, and it doesn't. I get it. It's not a nice thing when somebody tells you something you do 3 times a day causes something that you're against. It
Hmm.
doesn't feel good. You say to someone, what do you think of people who abuse animals? Scum. I hate them. And then, 10 minutes later, you're saying, you're paying people to abuse animals. And of course they're going to hate me and they'll think that I am egotistic or arrogant, or I think I'm better than them, and all these. This is all a defense mechanism, and it's hard to not take it personally because it's been years now, and it does grind on me. Some days you can't be as patient and as understanding as other days, but I generally try to be really understanding of people because I was there too. I was stubborn when I was being told about the things happening in the milk industry and the egg industry. I was stubborn too. I was one of the people that was, not enjoying being told I was wrong. It doesn't feel good. So you're totally right. Yeah, let I think we've got to, as anyone who's trying to fight for animals and make a better world for animals, definitely you need to get that lesson ingrained that it's not personal when people are coming after you. Yeah.
I'm switching to another sensitive topic.
Okay.
Hunting.
Right. Okay.
In one of your satirical videos, you highlighted the absurdity of killing animals for pleasure.
Yes.
By pretending to hunt a bunch of bananas.
Yeah.
Your stance on trophy hunting and sport killing is clearly critical. However, even the IUCN argued that well-managed trophy hunting can provide revenue and incentives to conserve wild populations and protect habitats. How do you respond in that line of reasoning? We heard, I know a factual story before I let you answer the question.
Sure, go ahead.
There is I have a big problem with memory, but most probably remember the name afterwards. There is a story, a funny story from histories, when the guys from England immigrated to Australia. One of the guys that went there, one of the lords, said he wants to hunt rabbits, and there were no rabbits. I think rabbits, yes, rabbits in Australia.
Yeah.
And now Australia has a huge problem with rabbits because they took them there, populated, and they have no natural predators anymore.
Right.
And they're not able to get rid of them. And they are trying to keep different nests and so on in the forest so that they are keeping them far away, but they have no problem because they are invading the cities already.
Right. Yeah, I'll put, this is going to sound funny, and it is kind of humorous because it is ridiculous, but I'll just say it because I think it's a good start to this topic of my answer. So, I mean, I don't know if you heard though, but you know Oxfam, right? The big charity, human charity. So they've been struggling for funds for a long time. I mean, they got funding for some things, but they don't have funding for other things. So basically what they've started to do is they are allowing rich Westerners to fly over to some of these very poor areas of the world. And what they're allowing them to do is there's varying levels of what they can do. So basically, they have some people that these rich Westerners, they're allowed to beat up, so they can pay to beat some poor people up. And on the other side of it, if they really want to pay some real money, they can pay to go and hunt them. So they basically have this big enclosure, big enclosure, like big enough that it feels like a real hunt. But actually, these humans, these poor people, can't get out. Right, they're enclosed.
What?
And yeah, they pay enough and they can go. But the thing is, right? But the thing is, it's okay because the amount of money that Oxfam makes back from this, they can reinvest into the local community, and they can help. And anyway, by taking
No, it's not okay.
But hold up, by taking out those extra people, it means that everybody who's left gets more resources, right?
Okay,
it helps to balance out the population, and also it's perfect because it balances out the population. It makes sure that everyone's got enough food and water, and it gets money invested in so that they can continuously improve the food and the water situation. You see, so it works out.
You got me in. Congrats, you got me in.
Yeah. So this I mean, for I think for anyone listening who's really listening, they'll see. I don't have to explain the analogy. But I will, just in case anyone tuned out. Basically, the idea of allowing people to pay to kill the animals that you are tasked with protecting so that you can protect them is about the most backwards and sadistic thing I've ever heard in my life. So we're going to kill them for their own good, because if we let people kill them, then we'll have more money to help them. I don't think, I'm not sure any amount of conservation in my eyes would justify gunning down some of the animals you're trying to conserve. We would never do it in a human context. And I know we're different, but we would never do it in a human context. For us, we will do everything else in our power, everything we possibly could before we even consider something like that. Now, I don't see any meaningful difference between us and them that means that it's okay to go and just kill them willy-nilly. Why not? But not us. And I say that not as in reducing humans. I say that as in, like I said earlier on, they have the basics that give them, they're deserving of respect and deserving of consideration because they are emotional, complex beings, creatures that suffer psychologically, physically, personalities, loving families. Those are the things that we share that make us important. If a human has none of those things, they're no longer valuable anymore, right? If they're on a machine and they're completely gone, there's no human left there anymore. Somebody's going to turn the machine off, right? Because there is no one anymore. Why? Because they don't feel anything, because there's no person there anymore. They don't exist anymore. And if there's no chance of them coming back, why would we keep them alive, right? So these are the things we value. Animals have all those things. And so this idea of killing them on a whim because some conservation thing, I just can't get on board with that. You know,
Do you see any scenario in which hunting could be justified?
survival. If you have absolutely no other choice, it would still be. I mean, it's your will versus theirs. And if you chose that you wanted to survive, I don't think anybody could blame you for that. It's understandable. And I think that's probably about the only situation where it's understandable, if it's for your survival.
There is a huge trend which is growing in US, and that's bow hunting.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
How do you see it? Okay, you first, because then I want to share my my
Bow hunting. So basically, just they're going out and they're with these jacked up, crossbows, and they're killing animals to eat them. Right. Yeah, it's completely. They don't need to be doing that. They're doing it because they enjoy. It's pleasure. It's all pleasure, right? I don't see any difference between a bow hunter and a trophy hunter. They're both killing for pleasure. So, for example, if you look at a trophy hunter, why does he kill an elephant? Because he wants the tusk. Why? Maybe he wants to sell it. Why? Because he wants the money to make him happy. Okay. Maybe he just wants to kill the elephant. Why? Because it makes him happy. What about bullfighting? Why do people go to see bullfighting, and why do people do bullfighting? Well, exactly, it's disgraceful. All for fun, enjoyment, entertainment, pleasure. Why does somebody go out bow hunting? Because they enjoy hunting and they enjoy eating the meat. Do they need to eat that animal's body? Is that something that if they don't do that, then they're going to suffer and die? Nope. They have alternatives. They have lots of alternatives. Okay, so why do they do it? Because they enjoy it. So I don't see how that's any really meaningfully different from the trophy hunter or from the bullfighter. They're all doing it because they like it at the end of the day,
Correct. It's getting pleasure on the price of the other suffering.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Pleasure or profit. Yeah, pleasure, profit, and convenience, basically, off the back of a suffering animal. Yeah.
What I always thought, and I'm absolutely honest with you, that I thought that you give the animal an extra chance. You give even though it's pleasure, I have the feeling it's not it's not a gun hunting, because gun hunting, I always find it this is such a stupid game. I'm sorry, but if you go with a 22 millimeters bullet in front of any animal, it's useless. Like, you don't show that you are a man.
Right.
But somehow I have somehow the feeling that the hunting, so the bow hunting, was always something which was always there in our history. If you look back, we always did this bow hunting, spear fishing,
Right.
for survival reasons, for sure. Of course, now we have other alternatives. Absolutely with you.
Yeah.
But I have somehow the feeling that was you give a chance to the animal.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's much of a chance with these, hyped up crossbows.
I've never used one. I've never used.
Have you ever seen these things? They're
No, not in real life.
Oh yeah, so they are. We're not talking about a Robin Hood, crossbow, right? A little ding. We're talking about these massive, huge things. They are super high tech and they're extremely powerful and extremely accurate. So yes, you're right. Okay, fine. There's more of a chance. Animal has more of a chance than with some modern rifle, but it's still not. Once somebody's mastered this crossbow, it's not exact. It's still not giving them much of a chance. Also, I've got a hunter friend, ex-hunter friend who is now a vegan, and he's talked me through this and says that actually the vast majority of hunters are not particularly good at what they do, and the ones who are particularly good at what they do still have a very high miss ratio because it's
Uh-huh.
out in the wild, and so that means that in many cases the first hit isn't the one that kills the animal. In many cases the animal gets away with the injury, and so who knows if they bleed out
Uh-huh.
somewhere slowly, because this is the reality of this hunting. But in terms of, I will give you something because I know that there is something that I didn't mention that is important. I oppose hunting. I do not agree with it, as I've already established. But if everybody in the world decided, okay, I'm now only going to eat meat from hunted animals, well, first of all, all of them would be extinct within a matter of
Uh-huh.
weeks. So it's completely not feasible. But if everybody in the world said, again, like I said earlier, we are happy to significantly, and I'm talking significantly, reduce how many animals we're eating so that we can only eat hunted animals. And there was some way of doing it where it was just literally, it's so impractical and it would never happen. But obviously, that would be significantly better than the systems that we have now. But it's not
I
going to happen, you
I
know?
would change that statement a bit. And I would say, what would it be if everyone would only eat what they have hunted?
We would hunt them into extinction.
Nah, let's agree to disagree. I don't think we are that good hunters.
Well, we have 8 billion humans, and if 8 billion humans went out trying to hunt, there would be no animals left in a very short space of time.
That's correct, but still they will not get. We are lazy. No.
Also that, but oh yeah, do you know what? You've got a good point there. They'd probably all switch to animal-free diets. Yeah, because
Absolutely.
yeah, no, you're totally right. And I think so. The reason I say that is that obviously I want a world where we don't do any of these things to animals.
Of course.
However, if along the way we end up in a world where people only eat meat from hunted animals, that would mean every single farm and slaughterhouse pretty much would be gone. And imagine if we got to that point, and then all I have to say is, hey, do you know how you eat meat once every year from this hunted animal? How about not doing that and let's stop hunting animals? How much easier would that be versus every single shop has literally every single piece of an animal in it at all times, including, by the way, baby animals, which is always something that's blown me away.
The
Lambs, you know,
easiness with which
and
you can buy
absolutely,
everything. This is
absolutely the
the
convenience of it.
convenience.
Yeah.
Um, David, you haven't hesitated to call out what you see as performative or misdirected activism.
Right.
You wrote that a lot of online vegan activism is vegan porn. I love the term,
Yes.
implying it's more about self gratification and shock value than helping animals.
So, okay, can I clarify that?
Yes.
um, yeah, that's probably a top level overview. But what I will say is, this is not. I don't believe that anyone doing this is doing it with malice or on purpose. That is not what's happening. I think, unfortunately, a lot of vegans online and vegans who do activism, they're doing it out of a place of this makes me feel good, and so it must be the right thing to do. And that's a trap a lot of people fall into, you know?
But that's the problem of social media in general, David. That's
Exactly.
the problem. And that's
Yeah.
something that's, if vegan is just the middle with which you are reaching your end goal, but the end goal is dislikes,
Yeah,
shares,
that comes into it.
followers.
But the
And
difference here is, I think, is that that feeds into the belief that it's working. If you get likes and comments and followers and shares, it makes you feel that your work is successful. But that's not always the case. Like, I could post a video up where this interview right now, I could have sat here and I could have used this as an opportunity for content, and I could have just called you a murderer, scumbag, how dare you, and you would have been, oh my god, and probably maybe fighting back a little bit. I could have got some great clips, popped it online. It's going to go viral, right? Most likely, or a lot of people are going to go like, oh my god, look at this. But the thing is, even though it's successful as a piece of content, what are the people going to think who are not vegan when they see
what's
that?
the added value? There is no added
What are they
value.
going to see? What are they going to think of me? What are they going to think of my points? they're going to probably think I'm a pretty nasty person and that you are actually quite a nice person. And so they're going to want to listen to you more. And at this point, you're not going to be being nice about me and nice about animals. You're probably going to be saying the complete opposite because I've annoyed you and I've upset you. So we've created a great piece of content, but at what expense? And I'm not here to create content. I'm not here to create fun and entertainment unless it has a point that works. It needs to convince people to listen and do something for animals, right? That's the priority.
The problem is the attention spam, David.
Yes, 100%.
The attention spam is really limited. I see the traction on the episodes that I'm posting, and there are less people who have the attention span to listen to all the episodes, and more people who have the interest in those shorts that I'm posting, even though it's the same content.
Right. Well, if you like, we can do like a quick aggressive argument, and you can put that at the beginning of the podcast, so people think that, oh my god, and then
I will take the piece that you made it, that you said before, like murderer.
Yeah, perfect. There you go. Put that at the start and put coming up. They'll watch until now, 2 hours in, and they'll go, you got me good.
You asshole. Come on, man. The discussing about these topics is what makes this world a better place, and this is what gets the information there.
Yeah.
And David, trust me, the thing that people are doing everything for likes is not only about vegan or vegetarian.
Yeah, it's everything. Yeah, it's everything.
As I said, the middle doesn't matter. The purpose is always the likes and shares, and I want to be popular, I want to get rich and stuff like this. And
yeah,
I know what you said with vegan porn. I absolutely knew exactly that was the point, and I know you don't think that they mean something bad.
No.
But the purpose of it's a different one than the one that you have.
Yeah, it's a little different. And there's another element to it, as well as the likes and the shares, and using that as a proxy for the success of a I'm convincing people because it has lots of views, and it's a bit of a trick that we fall into. But the other thing is that, look, if take an issue you're passionate about, like whatever it may be. I mean, you talked about how you want to raise your son in a good way, and you don't want him to fall into the trap you fell into with the overweight and being unhealthy. Great, right? So that's a passion for you. Now imagine there's somebody out there who is saying, actually, and this person's very famous, and imagine influencing millions of people to say, eat as much junk as you possibly can. Life's too short. Who cares about health, right? You're going to be pretty pissed off. You might be tempted to go online, put the camera on, and say, this person is a piece of shit. Fuck that person. I hate them. This guy is horrible. Look what he's saying. Now, you're going to feel great. When you've made that video, you're going to post it. You're going to go, yeah, I told him what's what. Now, all of his followers can see what I think about this guy. Now, it feels great. And you might think that's the way to do it. That is the way, because it feels great. It looks great. Everyone's telling me I'm amazing. But is it going to convince the followers of that guy?
Never.
No, probably not, right?
Nope.
That's the mistake that I was making for some years, actually, as a vegan and trying to put the message out about animals. And I think some are still caught in this trap of feeling like that's the way to do it, because we care so passionately, we care so deeply about animals, and we want to shout, and we want to call people, especially the most horrible people. We want to call them names. We want to say horrible things about them, but yeah, it's not always, and most of the time probably isn't the best ways to actually get people to listen and do something.
You've been using or you've popularized some terms like meat flakes or vegan woke flakes.
God.
I hope I said them right.
Yeah.
In your content.
Yeah.
And you're known for the, I would say, funny, no nonsense talk. I would just call it like this.
Yeah.
Some say that using such labels and confronting people aggressively could alienate potential allies, or reinforce the stereotypes of the angry vegan, of the aggressive vegan.
Yeah.
You just said that you changed that. Mm-hmm. What was that trigger point that made you change that?
Well, I can define first of all what a meat flake was, and I don't use this. I don't use this anymore because
it's funny.
It was always funny because basically, I've been called a snowflake about 1 million times over the last couple of years because of speaking up for animals, and so I figured, well, look, they call me a snowflake, and that's fine, But there are a lot of people who are not vegan who get really, really upset with vegans. And I don't mean when vegans are shouting or something. I mean, I could post, you can look at my most recent posts. Very kind, very nice, very reasonable. People in the comments, some guy messaged me today, DM'd me saying, like, oh, I'm eating meat, fuck you. And I'm like, dude, I've not even like argued with anybody in months, and you're coming here like as if I'm being horrible. So so I came up with this term of okay, so what are they? The people who eat meat who get upset with vegans for no reason really, very unreasonable, irrational. It's like a snowflake, a meat flake. And so I was using that for a little while, and I agree that in hindsight now, it was fun, but it was vegan porn. It was only for the vegans. It wasn't helping anything. It wasn't doing any good for anyone. Vegan woke
It was
flake.
funny.
It was fun. It was
Though.
fun and games. Yeah, fun and games. And vegan woke flake. I can't even remember what that one was. I think it was maybe a. There are some vegans in the community who are very, very sensitive to everything, and I don't just mean animals. I mean everything. And so if you say something, I don't know, say if you have a live stream and it's all men, they'll get very upset. Where are the women? Why do you not have any women on your live stream? Things like that. And there are these people are out there in the world, and yeah, we have some vegans like that too. And so I think I made that up for them at some point. I can't really remember, but yeah, you're right. I learned that these labels are not helpful. I want to unify people. I don't want to tear people apart, whether they be vegans and other vegans or vegans and people who are not currently vegan. I want to unify so that we can all grow together and make a better world for animals. That's my goal now. I can't remember what your question was, but I just wanted to define those two things.
What was the trigger moment?
What changed? That's it. Yeah.
Not the moment, but what was the trigger event?
No, good question. I've been asked this a couple of times, and I think it just started to creep in on me. This idea of I think I just became self-aware that I was actually very angry, because I am angry. I mean, all the things I've seen, it makes me upset and angry. And the thing I realized I'd been letting it seep into a lot of the things I do in the daily basis. I think I just became aware of that and started to question, am I saying this and doing this because I'm angry? Or am I saying and doing this because I hope it'll make somebody change? And it was a gray area. And I think that thought just started to get more and more prominent until I realized, no, I need to start to focus on what will actually encourage people to change and help animals, and I deal with my anger in a different way. I'm not angry at people, by the way. I'm angry at the situation. I'm angry about what these animals go through. I'm angry that I've seen so much of it, and I'm continuing to see so much of it because of the work I do. And when you see this much suffering, when you see this much violence, it can be difficult to process it in a healthy way. And I think I became aware that a lot of it was going into the work, and that's not good, because you need to be convincing and encouraging, and do what you want. You need to change the world for animals. And anger is useful in some contexts, but not in a lot of contexts if you're trying to do outreach, right? You can't be angry while you're trying to reach out to people. Yeah.
You mentioned a few times the vegan community, David. Then I have somehow the feeling, based on what you said, what the stories that you told, not only today but in all the other discussions, that critic is not so welcome in the vegan community. Do you ever have the feeling that is becoming a cult?
No, not in the way that you would think. I mean, look, every type of group will have certain members of the group. So whether it be, I don't know, you've got MAGA in the USA, you've got leftists you're in Germany, right? So you got leftists in Germany, you've got, maybe not so much, well, you got right wingers, but they're quite, secret. But I guess you got more centrists.
Not anymore.
Oh yeah, not anymore.
Centrists,
you got centrists in Germany, you got feminists, you've got trying to think of different examples. You got people, I don't know, you got the kind of people that like Andrew Tate. You've got, all these different groups of people with all the different beliefs. And within these groups, you've got people who are quite reasonable, and you could probably have a discussion with them about why they believe what they believe. And it's quite, you can kind of put 2 and 2 together and, we get 4. And then you've got people in those groups that are gone. Like they actually worship Andrew Tate, or they worship Donald Trump, or they worship some leader of the group, and becomes cultish. Is that prevalent in the vegan world? There are small subsets of vegans that have some kind of affinity to an individual they've decided that they really, really like. And does it come off a little culty sometimes? For sure, there definitely are relatively small groups, I would say, of people that kind of behave like that. But for the vast majority of people, it comes off culty for people from the outside, because there is resistance to external arguments that suggest we should be eating, using, killing animals. That's why people see it as culty, because people don't budge on that. We don't budge on that. We're like, no. Like, we're not. We don't believe animals should be having these things done to them. So people go, "You're a cult because you won't budge." This is the problem,
because this is so the thing is that look, in our discussions, based on your arguments, you really have arguments, David, and I will never say you are a cult member because you didn't tell me. No, I don't.
Yeah.
You had arguments, and I think this is the definition of an open discussion, like everyone to put their arguments there and to justify our choices, right?
Yeah, I think I will tap onto that. Just a quick example, like to show you the difference between someone who might be caught up in a kind of more religious belief associated with something or not, and I can apply it to 2 different things: veganism and also Donald Trump. Right? I've seen some people who hate Donald Trump, and they've been interviewed, and they'll be asked, okay, so you hate him, I hate him. Yeah. Okay. What do you hate about him? This, or this. Great. All good. They'll say, could you tell me one good thing about him, or one thing that you like? If they say nothing, absolutely nothing, 100% nothing, they're in a cultish sort of religious mindset, because there are people I really don't like. Okay. For example, one of them would be this carnivore influencer, Sean Baker. He's very horrible about vegans. He lies about vegans. He lies about the plant-based diet. He's a misinformation hub. Okay. If someone asked me, is there anything you like about him? I could tell you right away. Yeah, I like his commitment to his training. He's an older man and he trains hard, and he's healthier in terms of like athletic ability. He's better than some younger men who, are lazy and don't train or whatnot. Yet he has all the limitations of an older man, still smashing it. I think that's awesome. But he's terrible. He's a terrible guy in terms of what he does and the kind of misinformation he puts out, right? So if that's the difference between, and in the vegan context, if someone says, is there any situation where you would ever eat meat or eat an animal? If a vegan says no, not one, and I would die, I find that to be a little cultish. I think a more reasonable answer would be to say, well, I mean, if I literally was going to die and I had to, I would, probably do what I need to do to survive. That to me shows that somebody it's not a religion to them. It's a very practical thing to them. They're reasonable. No shade on the vegans who say that they would rather die. I just don't agree with you. And I don't feel that's a healthy relationship with being a vegan. I think we need to be reasonable, practical, and try and stay away from ideological belief systems, and more to this is a practical thing. This is based in reality. And I am a realistic person. I think we need to really stay there.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm asking about the cultish, because I think that's it's not good for anyone. It's not good for the person being inside that. It's not good for the person being outside. It's not good for anyone. And I think this open discussion is exactly what we need.
Yeah, agreed.
We are here at the whereabouts tales, and for you, I think the crazy whereabouts tale is you've essentially become a globe-trotting activist. You've moved from UK, and correct me if I'm wrong, Turkey. You traveled to India, Luxembourg. This is what I have for your work. Have or others the question: how have these geographical moves and travel shape your personality as an activist?
It's an interesting question. I think the biggest one that shaped me as a person, as an activist, was India, because I spent, well, not by choice actually. We got stuck for a very long time in India during COVID.
Oh, okay.
Lockdown kicked in. All the airports closed down. We were stuck there for about. I feel it felt like it was longer, but I think it was like 5-6 months we were there. And overall in India, we spent around 2 years there over, extended time. But that was a really long time that we were there. And what I learned from India that really helped me as an activist was that in India, I don't know if you've been to India. Have you been to India?
Nope.
So anyone who's been to India will know this, and Indians listening will 100% know this, is that it's a very, very, very loud, busy country. And if you want to be heard in an argument, or just your voice to be heard at all, you got to talk, and you got to talk loud, and you've got to talk firm, and you've got to get your points out. They're very good at arguing. A lot of Indians I met, very, very good at getting into it. And that wasn't different for the vegan activism scene there too. So people going out there doing activism, very strong, very powerful, including some Muslims who in India, which bordering Pakistan, that and with some of the kind of Muslim communities, that's not a safe thing to be doing, to be advocating against killing animals to a religion, as being a member of a religion that sacrifices animals once a year and has religious laws around how to kill animals and things like that. And some of these activists were getting death threats, like regular, and their safety was being threatened. Didn't stop them one bit. And I think my experience over there with these people, and it just really kind of carved out a new side of me that told me that, well, I've got it pretty easy. I'm talking to people in the West where the worst thing that can happen to me is they tell me to go F myself and don't want to talk to me. Over here, in this side of the world, they're literally having threats on their life and their families. Their families disowning them, some of these guys, because of their views. Hindus too, by the way. Hindus are great with animals to a certain extent, but dairy, try and tell a Hindu don't drink milk, you're going to get disowned. you know, and some of their families are very passionately, fundamentally fundamentalist Hindus, and they don't stand it. And so, it really, it taught me really valuable lessons about, just appreciating how different it is as to be an activist in the West, and valuing the amazing work of these activists and their dedication. Taught me how to be dedicated, taught me how to step it up even more, and not complain when things get hard, and like, God, well, I mean, look what they're doing, blew me away. So yeah, that was an incredible experience. Yeah.
A really nice story. I love that quote that says the worst thing that ever happened to you is the worst thing that ever happened to you.
Right.
As much as you like to complain, it's not the worst thing that happened on this world. No, there are much worse things that are on this planet.
Yes, definitely. Priority. What's the word I'm looking for? No. Perspective, that's the one. I knew it was
Exactly.
a P. I was trying to get it. Perspective, yeah.
It's like me with the food.
Yeah.
David, you've seen the worst of what humans can do to animals. Yet you still manage to infuse your activism with humor and hope. What keeps you from despair?
I think it's knowing that despair means if I let myself fall into despair, it means that everything that I've seen animals going through, continues unencumbered. If I'm in despair, I'm not doing anything to help them actually. So it's almost a constant motivation to not let myself fall there, because they're depending on me not falling into despair. I have to stay up, and I have to keep going, and I have to keep trying And if I don't, I failed. I failed them. I failed them, and everything that I saw them going through, I become not part of it because I'm not funding it, but I'm certainly not trying to stop it if I fall into despair. And I can't stomach that. That's never something I'll be able to live with. So
Are you still?
there's no magic thing that I do like, oh, I go to the gym. It's not that. It's much deeper than that, you know. But I mean, yeah, training and taking your mind off things for a couple hours does help, but that's not the drive. The drive comes from what I said.
Is there a moment when you would say you lost your optimism?
About 5 times a day. You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, of course, man. There's never been. I've not had a big moment where I've said that's it. I can't do. You know, I've had days where I feel deflated, but I know that the next day I'm gonna come back. I know I take a break. I take breaks when I feel like that. You have to. I mean, this is anyone who's working in anything that involves such horrific violence to innocence knows the importance of taking breaks and realizing that how you feel today is not how you're going to feel tomorrow. Or maybe it lasts for 2 or 3 days, you never know, but it's going to go away and you're going to get that motivation back and you're going to get back on things and keep working because you know the alternative isn't an option. You can't stop because it's that would be giving up and that's not an option. So yeah.
David, what's your vision for the future? How do you see yourself, not only yourself, but how do you see the movement
Yeah.
and your journey? If we say, okay, we revisit you in 5 years, in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years,
Yeah.
what do you hope will be different about the world and about yourself?
I hope that in 5 years, I mean 5 years is such a short amount of time, but I hope that in 5 years that we'd see just more people having consideration for the things we've spoken about today, having more consideration for these farmed animals and the horrific lives that they're all in, you know, and I suppose that, okay, so if we're talking such short term, I would hope that we've reached a point where most people who oppose factory farming, which is a lot of people, actually are boycotting factory farming and demanding it changes and stops because it's over 90% of animal products come from factory farms, but then over 70% of people say they oppose factory farms. So there's clearly something wrong here. So I'd hope in short term, 5 years, that's where I hope we're at. I hope people are finally saying, fine, I'm not going to eat animal products from factory farms. That would be a big step along the way of changing the world for animals and progress. In terms of myself in 5 years, I think I would be in. I've got some things that I'm doing right now that are confidential. I'm not able to talk about, but I would really hope that that came to fruition by then. I would hope that off the back of that, that I have more influence, that I have been able to reach new audiences and make a huge difference off of this project. I mean, I'm really been working on this for 3 years now, so we're really banking on this as being a kind of a life's work. You know, something that's everything's built up to this moment, and maybe we can do another podcast once it's all out there because
I would love it.
yeah,
I would love it.
it involves
Just
you.
drop me in.
It involves you. It involves. I can tell you that it involves. It will absolutely impact you and everyone you know. I can tell you that.
Cool. I would love it. David, you know me, I'm just an email away, so drop me an email whenever you want and we do this again. We are not that yet ready, but I have to say I enjoyed the conversation. I love talking to people who are able to and I mean that who are able to have an argumented discussion because we should have different opinion on things. We should discuss our opinions, and this is how the world has to move on, not killing each other and hating each other.
Yeah.
Um, Before we wrap it up, David, I usually have a set of rapid fire questions. I have them for you as well, are always tailored on the guests.
Sure.
What's the first thing you say to a meat eater who tells you they love animals?
Amazing. I'm really happy that they love animals. It fills me with hope when they say that. So that's the first thing I do acknowledge. Absolutely fantastic. I love that you love animals. Um, what's stopping you from extending that love to the animals and farms and slaughterhouses? Why not love them too? And if we do, then let's take them off our plates, and that's how you love, isn't it? I mean, that's the first thing you can do. It's the very first thing you can do if you love animals is don't put them on your plate.
What's the most unexpected place you've met another vegan?
Um, oh, that's a oh, uh, if I can tell you this, I can tell you this. A slaughterhouse.
Wow. I mean, I can understand because if you were there, I don't think you can eat meat anymore.
Mm, good point. Good point. Yeah, that story that will be another story for another time when I can talk about it. But
Yeah.
yes, in a slaughterhouse. Yeah.
Favorite plant-based meal that you could eat every day?
Burritos, 100%, with beans and go beans and fried vegetables, stuff like that, rice. I a good dollop of vegan mayo in there. And if I'm feeling unhealthy, the mayo's mayo, whatever, it's sauce. It doesn't count, right? But
No.
if but if I'm feeling particularly, like I want something really, I don't really care about if it's healthy or not. Let's just get in there. Then I will also add in like loads of vegan meat and vegan cheese and make it all greasy and but if you're looking for healthiness, bean burrito is banging. Oh, guacamole, of course, guacamole as well
Guacamole.
for a good healthy fat. Yeah, no, I absolutely love burritos.
What's the weirdest excuse you've heard for not going vegan?
Oof, that's a question. I was thinking about this the other day actually. Um, oh, it was a good one. It was God. It's a shame it's not on the tip of my tongue. I will try. I'll try and just think of one that I've had more recently. Then, I mean, okay, the weirdest one that comes to my mind right now is it's actually quite a common one. It's really interesting. The claim that veganism itself is it's a colonizer mentality and it's deeply racist. And it's I love this one because it makes me it really entertains me because the idea that they put forward is it's because vegans are saying let's not kill animals anymore and let's eat something else, right? They see that as an affront to indigenous cultures, even though most indigenous cultures have modernized now, and there is nothing traditional about how they live and what they do. For example, the indigenous people of Finland, they round up the reindeer with helicopters. There's nothing, you know what I mean? So they see veganism as an affront to that, and it's like, well, there's nothing indigenous about rounding reindeer up in a helicopter. You know what I mean? So I find that one really funny. Um, and it's even more funny when you add to it that the idea of being good to animals and not consuming them or hurting them actually comes from the East. It comes from the idea of ahimsa, Buddhism. This kind of if it's colonizing, they're the ones doing the colonizing. If that's the case, then which doesn't,
Makes no sense.
right, right. So no, that's probably my one of my funnier ones I think that I've heard. Yeah.
What's one stereotype that about vegans that you wish would disappear?
God, the idea that vegans are all vegan men especially get this. Vegan women not so much. Vegan men, it's constantly hammered in that low testosterone, feminine, can't get muscle, weak. It's just never ends. It's constant. Even though now we've had the film The Game Changers, which completely blew that out of the water. You got me walking around. I put weight on to prove this point. I used to be quite skinny naturally, runner, and I thought, you know what? Okay, I'm going to try and put weight on. I went 70 kilos to 90 kilos, and now I'm sitting at 90 kilos. And so I don't get those comments anymore. Oh, you look skinny, or I don't get that anymore. But anyone who is a little skinny or a little slim and is vegan and a guy immediately, oh, it's because you're a vegan. It's because you don't get enough protein, and it's just not true, and it needs to go away. It's a really silly one. I mean, look at how many skinny guys there are that aren't vegan, right? So many. It's genetics, it's calories, it's activity levels, it's you know.
What's one thing you believe now and you didn't believe 5 years ago?
Um, one thing I believe now, didn't believe 5 years ago. I think 5 years ago I had a lot less. I don't know what the word would be. Basically, I didn't think less of people, but I thought that there were significantly less people who would be willing to change for animals. I kind of got into a place where I thought, I think I'm trying to find a needle in a haystack when I'm talking to people. I got into quite a sad, space. Nowadays, I actually think that the vast majority of people have it in them to care enough to make changes for animals. Even if they don't make every change right away, I think 99% of people have the capacity to start making changes right now because I do think most people are good deep down. Even if they maybe don't show it, I think most people are good and want to be good. 5 years ago, I was doubting that, I would say.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Makes sense. Last one. If you could have dinner with an historical figure, dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh, um, oh, this is a really tough one. Historical figure, dead or alive. So you're thinking, there'd be some language barriers with some of these, though. I don't know.
And
Maybe
then
one of the great philosophers. Maybe there's someone like Socrates, um, or actually maybe a genius like Da Vinci. But I don't know how far you would get because they're probably a bit crazy, weren't they? You know, and so you
I,
probably be a waste of time.
I think you'd be disappointed, like don't meet your heroes. Like just read the books and that's okay. But that I had the same thought about Marcus Aurelius,
Yeah, yeah.
because it's the same thing. Like that guy wrote that book wrote those roles without knowing that someone would ever read them, and I don't think that he was an extrovert.
I take back my answers. I have the answer right now. I can't believe this didn't come to me right. Jesus. I want to meet Jesus.
Oh, now I got a shock.
You would want to meet Jesus? I'm not talking about Son of God, religious Jesus. I'm talking about the historical man who like existed, legit Jesus, Like
Okay,
whether
now
you
you have to
believe
tell me more.
whether you believe he was godly or not is irrelevant. I'm
Okay.
saying he existed. There was a man that walked the land in that time. It
Yeah,
was
for sure.
Jesus.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I would want to meet that guy and be like, is it true?
I mean, I man, I had the discussion I think with my wife a few weeks ago. I said, imagine now a guy would come and said, I'm Jesus. I'm the second time on earth, and said, just where did you buy the wheat? Where?
Right, yeah, like what have you been up to, bro? Like he'd be sectioned. They put him in some kind of home, wouldn't they? Some kind of psych ward or something.
um,
Man.
David, I do get book recommendations,
Okay.
and I do get book recommendation. I do get recommendations generally. Usually they are books, movies, or band or songs.
Mhm.
I would love to have something from you. I would like to have a book. I would like to have a documentary or speech even. Um, and if possible, also what kind of music is your favorite? Well, I would be interested to know.
Okay. I'll give you music first. My main thing is metalcore. I don't know if you know metalcore.
Yes, I
Cool.
know.
Yeah, metalcore. That's my main jam. Sometimes emo. I was big into emo when I was younger. I still love it
Oh,
though. I mean, I
I
don't.
that I think we are same generation then,
Yeah.
because I had emo in my childhood, not childhood, but as I was growing up as well.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I still love it. A lot of people have grown out of it and feel ashamed of liking it. I still love it. I want to get a hoodie that says emo isn't dead, and go out there and wear it like a
No, which would be funny because main topic of emo was that.
That's true. That's true. It was death and relationships, yeah, being
Exactly.
left alone and things like that. Yeah. I
Was
love it.
was was H.I.M. One of
Yeah,
the at the end of emo
they're
period,
sort of
right?
like emotional, kind of emotional rock, I'd say. But the kind of emo that I like them too. I did really like them. The emo I'm more into is more like with more like hardcore influences, emotional hardcore, I guess we
Hmm.
would call it. Um, like one of my favorites is Funeral for a Friend. I don't know if you know them. Just
I know it.
super emo. So I love those guys. But yeah, metalcore now, more stuff like Architects, which are the biggest band in metalcore right now, who are all vegan, by the way, which is pretty cool.
Cool.
They're like the leaders of the genre. Just dropped a new album, and it's awesome. People should check that out. And books and documentaries, I can give you two books. One's called Sapiens. Okay, the other one's called The Eternal Treblinka.
This one I don't know.
Okay, Eternal Treblinka is about it's deep. I actually, you know what? I'm not going to say it. I think people would find it to be incredibly eye-opening, and it'll definitely be nothing you've ever thought about before. Put it that way. I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to misrepresent it.
Eternal Treblinka?
Treblinka, yeah.
Okay, I will just add it in my into my wish list.
And documentary, there is a documentary that I think every single person living in the West, especially, should watch, and it's called Dominion.
I know it.
Dominion, yep, it's on YouTube. It's free to watch. Um, Again, it's another one of those that I think I will let the documentary do the talking for itself rather than me saying anything about it. Yeah, Eternal Treblinka by Charles Patterson.
Yes, I have it. Our Testament of Animals and the Holocaust. Yep, I have it.
Yep. Tough read.
Good.
A tough read, and the documentary is a groundbreaking documentary. That's the first of its kind in the kind of quality that it is, and the things that it deals with. It's proper groundbreaking. So Dominion on YouTube, that is.
I will link it in the show notes captions because I most probably will be able to find it. David, as you continue to evolve in your approach, referring to your recent "I'm taking a new direction" announcement, what do you ultimately want your legacy to be in this movement, in the grand whereabouts tale of your life? When you map the next chapter, what transformation do you foresee for yourself?
You mean like a lifetime type thing?
Yeah.
I just want to be able to I just hope that one day I am, on my deathbed and I can look back and say, look, I throughout my entire, time, I did what I could, and I always tried to do the best that I could for animals, to leave a better world behind for them, for the people around me. You know, I don't need to leave a legacy. I'm not interested in that. I don't want people to remember me. I don't care about that. I just need to know that when it's my time to go, that I did what I could, and I don't have regrets. Oh, I wish I'd have done this differently or that differently. Or I don't want to get to that point. I want to get to the point where I've constantly learned. I made mistakes, yeah, fine, but I learned from them always, and I always kept the goal in mind, and I always kept the task in mind, and the fight in mind. As long as I can leave with that and knowing that I did that, I'll be happy with what I did, regardless of,
The goal is the way. This is how I feel it.
Yeah, basically, yeah, it's a lifelong challenge that I have, and it's a lifelong challenge, and it directly deals with life and death, and that it deals with horrific violence and horrific suffering, and it's about trying to change that. And I'm under no false pretenses. I don't think that when I reach the end of my life that I'm going to have created a world that is entirely different than when I started. I don't think that that's going to happen in my lifetime. But I want to be able to say, well, I built the foundations for that world. I was one of the people who did that. And I can leave knowing that there are people who are going to take over from me. And that's going to keep on going. And in some, who knows, 100 years, that's when the fruits of that labor will come, and that's when things will be better, with incremental changes leading up to that point, of course.
There is no better way to finish this. I love it. David, thank you very much for being here today. And thank you for sharing your variant of the story. I'm just saying it like this. It's not that, but I love the discussion. I love the disagreements, because this is what makes the fun of it. And I thank you for letting me know you.
I appreciate the opportunity. It's been really nice to get into these. You ask good questions, and we explored some great topics. I'd say one last thing: if anyone has just 3 minutes of time and no longer, so you can't read any of the books, you can't watch the documentary, you only have 3 minutes of time, then use those 3 minutes to go to a website that I hope you can put in the description as well. But it's 3minutes.wtf/rams. And that's just literally only takes 3 minutes of your time. And I hope that anyone who's listened to this point would at least do that, because it's a very important 3-minute video that's changed a lot of people's lives, and I hope it would change yours as well.
Please tell where people please tell anyone who's watching where they can find you. I will link everything below anyhow.
Come find me on YouTube, David Rams, Instagram, David Rams, also on Twitter if that's your thing. Wherever you are, I probably am. If you want to actually speak to me, you can email me or direct message me on Instagram. My email is itsdavidrams@gmail.com. It starts with it's davidrams@gmail.com. I'm open to receiving hearing what you have to say, and any questions or anything like that.
He's replying really fast. Is there something that you wanted to talk about today and we didn't?
No, I think just to, I guess, in a nutshell, to conclude that, kind of, I suppose, bring everything together that we brought in together, and end on that. That there's so many things I could tell you about the things that are going on in these places, that it is just a long, long list. There are some that I missed out that I think are particularly striking, that I will just quickly mention now, just for anyone who's still around. That shocks most people. It shocks most people to know that for the pork industry, that most pigs are stunned and killed in gas chambers, using CO2 gas, concentrated CO2 gas, which some would say, oh, he puts them to sleep. It doesn't put them to sleep. Burns their eyes, noses, and lungs and throats, and leaves them screaming while they struggle to breathe, and eventually either pass out or die right there in the gas chambers. That's one of the most shocking things that people don't know. Another shocking thing people don't know about the egg industry is they grind up the baby male chicks about couple minutes after they're born, because they check what gender they are, what sex they are, and if they're female, they can lay eggs. Good. If they're males, can't lay eggs, wrong breed for meat, so they throw them into a giant macerator, just a giant machine that crushes, and they just get crushed alive after a couple minutes of being alive. That's the egg industry. And we already went through what the dairy industry does. And there's a long list of other things I could tell you, but these are in particular some of the most horrible things happening. And I just hope that everyone who's listened will consider that seriously and watch that video that I mentioned. And it really doesn't take much to start making changes in your life so that you're no longer paying these people who do these horrible things. I mean, if you have any care for animals, please just get these things off your plate. It's the best thing you can do for them.
I'm pretty sure you put a thought in everyone's head who watched this, because you did for me, for sure. As I said it several times already, I do appreciate a nice argumented discussion, and this was exactly what it was for me. Thank you again.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And whenever you have something that you want to share with the world, please drop me an email. I'm more than happy to have another discussion with you.
Sounds good.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Have a nice one. Bye.